Welcome to the prop drop for UFC 315, headlined by a welterweight title fight between Belal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena. The co-main event also features a title fight between Valentina Shevchenko, looking to successfully defend her title for the first time since winning it back. She goes up against Fiorot, who will surely have the support of the French crowd behind her this weekend. And again, this prop drop segment is briefly going over every single fight and highlighting the props that I like from both sides of the matchups. So whether you want to play it straight up or look at it as a hedge opportunity, I got you guys covered with this full prop drop segment. And then at the end of the show, giving you guys my top 3 prop bets, as well as a long shot to try to lock in. We'll see if we can hit that. All right, let's get right into this. First matchup up, we got Brad Katona going up against Bekzat Almakhan. I'm surprised, well, actually not anymore, because there is love coming in on Katona, which has brought him down to about that plus 110, plus 120 line. I like him in this spot a lot. You know, I think he has the better fight IQ. I think his grappling can compete with Almakhan. And then in the striking realm, I think Katona is a little bit slicker, and I think his fight IQ will end up being the difference maker in this matchup. Say what you want about Almakhan, the guy's durable. He took a shit kicking from Umar Nurmagomedov in his UFC debut last year, and I don't expect him to go away easily here against Katona, which is why I think Katona by decision would be the best way to go at plus 190. On the flip side, you can get Almakhan by decision plus 135. I'd be surprised if he's the one that ends up getting the finish in this matchup. Next up, we got Jung Young Lee going up against Daniel Wiley Cat Santos. Very fun matchup here, and I'm very surprised that Lee actually opened up around plus 165, and now he finds himself as the minus 125 favorite. I'm happy to have gotten in on him when he was a big underdog, and I completely agree with the line movement here. And I actually think it's going to be Lee that ends up putting together a better body of work over the course of 15 minutes, fueled by his striking, his defensive grappling, and really countering Santos whenever Santos closes the pocket a little bit too aggressively. That should lead to Lee winning this fight on the scorecards, which you can currently get at plus 360. On the flip side, if Lee still has some lingering effects of that knockout loss that he suffered at the hands of Haider Emil last year, maybe Santos by knockout at plus 440 is worth a consideration. But I do feel that Lee is the better way to go here. All right, next up, we got Bruno Silva going up against Marc-Andre Barriault. Very flaky fight. This is probably the fight that I have the least confidence in terms of picking a side. I ended up going with Bruno Silva. I think he ends up finding that fire once again, finding his ability to actually pull the trigger and let go with the power that we've known to come from him in the past. And I think he ends up finding the deteriorating durability and chin of Barriault and ends up putting him out here. You can get Silva by knockout at plus 220. On the flip side, we know Silva's hard to put away. Barriault usually has a great minute-winning style, and he could absolutely take this fight the full 15 minutes if his durability holds up and win this fight on the scorecards, which you can currently get at plus 290. Next up, Navajo Stirling going up against Ivan Erslan. I was very surprised that Stirling was unable to put away Tuco Tokos last time around, and I think we might see a little bit of a fire from him in this matchup, and I think he has a good stylistic matchup and a good partner to come through with a knockout once again. You know, the majority of Stirling's wins coming by knockout, and I think he has a big enough striking advantage here, speed advantage and power advantage. And again, Erslan leaves himself a little bit too open at times to get hit, and I think Stirling can capitalize on that and get a knockout, which you can currently get at plus 100. I think that Stirling could also come through with that knockout in round 1, which you can currently get at plus 310. Round 1 knockout. On the flip side for Erslan, if he does get the win here, maybe his grappling will be successful. I don't think it's that good to the point that he could stifle Stirling and overpower him and outmuscle him. But if he does get the win here, I'd be surprised if it comes by knockout. I wouldn't be surprised that if he gets his hand raised, it ends up coming by decision, which you can currently get at plus 650. So not a bad hedge opportunity if that's what you're feeling. All right, next up. Modestas Bukauskas going up against Iwan Cutelaba. Fun fight here, and it seems to have the betting public split. but I do find myself on the Lithuanian side here, as I believe Bukauskas can put together a better striking game. I think his defensive grappling will bail him out of any spots that Cutelaba tries to get this fight onto the ground. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Bukauskas is able to muster up a finish later on in this matchup. I do expect it to hit the scorecards, and if Bukauskas wins by decision, you can cash a plus 310 ticket. Long shot possibility here. Bukauskas by submission at plus 1200 is worth a consideration. If Cutelaba continuously tries to grapple and ends up gassing himself out, Bukauskas has shown that he's willing to engage in the grappling, and we know that part of his game is getting better, and Cutelaba has been submitted in the past, and it's something that he has found himself vulnerable with as well. If Bukauskas chases it enough, that long shot could become a reality. On the flip side for Cutelaba, I think his best way to win this fight is by chinning Bukauskas early. So for Cutelaba to win by knockout, you can get that line at plus 185. Not juicy enough for me to consider as a hedge, but if you are looking Cutelaba, that might be the best way to go about it. All right, next up, we got Canadian Jasmine Jasudavicius going up against Jessica Andrade. Fun fight here, but I think it's going to be a coming out party for Jasudavicius as she adds a former champion to her win column. Last time it was a former title challenger in Mara Bueno Silva, where she absolutely dominated her. And now in this matchup, I expect her to dominate Andrade and maybe even muster up a finish. We know Jasudavicius is very good from that top position. And I think she can replicate what Valentina Shevchenko has been able to do to Andrade in the past, and that's securing that top position, getting that crucifix position, and raining down big shots to eventually get that TKO. You can get Jasudavicius to win by knockout at plus 550, which I think is a good entry here. And even if you want to mix in some of the rounds, which you might hear about later on in this podcast, you could possibly get a better number than that. But still, plus 550, it's risky. But I think if she is going to be as dominant as I expect her to be with the wrestling, she should be able to muster up that finish. On the flip side for Andrade, same thing. Probably by knockout if she wins. She's able to crash the pocket, stuff a few takedowns, push the pressure on Jasudavicius, and land some big shots. She could absolutely come through with a knockout, which comes in at plus 650. All right, moving on to a fight that I expect to be full of violence. We got Canadian Mike Malott going up against brash-mouthed Charles Radtke. Fun fight here. Fight doesn't go to decision, currently sitting at minus 215. This is one of those fights where, Malott might look to try to dictate the pace and slow things down like he did against Trevin Giles to win his first fight by decision there. But given Radtke's style and how he fights and how aggressive he is, I expect him to pull out that killer in Mike Malott, and I think we'll see Malott actually come through with a finish. You can get Malott to win inside the distance at plus 125, and I think the side that comes out successful in terms of picking a exact method of victory from Malott would be the submission prop, which is currently at plus 400. I know Charles Radtke is a BJJ black belt, but Malott has a nasty squeeze when he's able to get chokes onto his opponents, and whether it comes by club and sub or whether Malott just snatches onto the neck of Radtke after a poor takedown attempt, I think that he can come through with that submission. But if you're feeling a little bit more iffy about his method of victory, you're getting a decent number at plus 125 for him to just win up straight up inside the distance. On the flip side for Radtke, I think either approach is feasible. Whether it's Radtke landing a big shot and winning by knockout, you can get that at plus 360. We've seen Malott's chin fail him in the past, even before the UFC. And then Radtke, like I said, BJJ black belt. Maybe he ends up being the one to get the club and sub, and you can get Radtke to win by submission at plus 1300. So something to consider there as well. All right, at the time of this recording, there is no props beside the totals for the Benoit Saint-Denis and Kyle Prepolec fight, given the short notice nature of that fight. I would be fine with taking BSD by submission at anything better than plus 100. I think he is the far superior grappler. Prepolec more of a striker, has some grappling in his back pocket if he needs it. But I don't think he's going to be at the level of BSD, who is just going to put that pressure on him, look to break him down, and eventually set up that rear naked choke, which I think he can get. I think it happens under 1.5 rounds, which is currently sitting at minus 175. But I would rather give myself, the full 15 minutes for Benoit Saint-Denis to snatch up that choke and get that submission. I'm hoping it's better than plus 100. His money line is minus 1,000, which makes me believe that a submission prop will probably be around minus 150, minus 200. If that's the case, I'll probably end up passing on it. But if I can find plus 100 on that submission prop, I'll end up taking that. All right, next up, we got Natalia Silva going up against former flyweight champion here, Alexa Grasso. Fun fight and a possible passing of the torch in terms of seeing Silva actually get a title shot if she's able to get the victory here. She's been very fun to watch with her perpetual movement, lateral movement, distance striking, crashing the pocket, landing some big shots, and showing off some good takedown defense as well. And I expect that to all shine once again here as she's able to win this fight on the scorecards, which you can currently get at minus 140. A little bit chalky for a decision prop, but given Silva's style and Grasso's durability, I'd kind of be surprised if Silva is able to pull off a finish here. So for her to just win by decision minus 140, probably the best way to go. For Grasso, maybe if she comes in with a good enough game plan where she can mix up her strikes and time some takedowns and probably even enjoy some top time, she could probably end up grinding this fight out and winning it on the scorecards, which you can currently get at plus 300. But I think Grasso has never been known as this crazy good wrestler. And I think Silva's improvements in the defensive aspect of those wrestling scenarios, I think that will bail her out of any bad spots. If Grasso does get in deep on a takedown, I'd be surprised if she's able to accrue enough control time or even get to a dominant enough position to have much success. Look for Silva to pick her apart and win this fight on the scorecards. All right, next up, Jose Aldo going up against Ayman Zahabi. Fun striking battle here. I don't expect it to play out as closely as the Mario Bautista fight did. I don't think Zahabi has it in him to really push Aldo up against the cage and just keep him there. I don't think his takedowns are good enough to deal with a guy with elite level takedown defense as Jose Aldo. And I expect this to primarily be a striking battle. And that's where you have to give the edge to Aldo for his speed, his power, his stinging power, and just his variety of attacks that I believe he can attack Zahabi with. Zahabi's just been, outpointing these guys ever so slightly, but I don't think he's going to be able to have that effect here against Aldo, who should be the one landing more devastating blows throughout the 15 minutes. And I expect him to win this fight by decision, which you can currently get at minus 110. On the flip side for Zahabi, if he wins, probably comes how he's been doing it as of late, slowly picking guys apart, finding the opportunities to counter, and eventually getting his hand raised that way. But Zahabi to win by decision currently sits at plus 250. Next up, we got Valentina Shevchenko looking to defend her title against Manon Fiorot. A lot of people are low on Shevchenko after her trilogy against Alexa Grasso, and then people forget about the body of work that she's been able to put, which is why she finds herself as an underdog for the fourth time in her UFC career. Just a note, she went 3-0 in those first three fights as an underdog, and I expect her to go 4-0 when she puts together just a complete mixed martial arts performance here against Fiorot. People forget that Shevchenko was most feared for her striking when she came into the UFC and through the several first fights that she had with the promotion, and then she started implementing that grappling game, especially that nasty armbar she was able to pull off. I believe it was against Juliana Pena earlier on in her career. I think mixing her grappling, it may not be like a Alexa Grasso type performance where she's able to accrue 15 minutes of control time over 25 minutes, but having that threat of the takedowns, the strength, and then mixing it behind her striking style, I think she can really do a good job here against Fiorot. And if this fight ends up hitting the scorecards, I think Shevchenko has a damn good chance of winning this fight, and you can get that prop at plus 220. On the flip side, Fiorot, if she wins, it probably looks like her defending the takedowns, utilizing her movement, landing those big shots on Shevchenko, picking her apart, and winning the fight on the scorecards, which you can currently get at plus 125. And if there is some weight to the potential deteriorating durability of Shevchenko, maybe Fiorot lands a clean enough shot on Shevchenko here to put her away, and you can get Fiorot to win by knockout at plus 550. But I have to go with the champion here to retain her title, and I think it comes on the scorecards. All right, that brings us to the main event now, where we have the welterweight title on the line, as we have champion Belal Muhammad looking to defend his title for the first time, taking on Aussie Jack Della Maddalena. Fun fight here between two guys with clashing styles. You got a guy in Belal Muhammad who's going to be looking to implement his grappling and his wrestling and setting a high pace, which often fuels the lack of technical abilities that he has in certain parts of the mixed martial arts world. He may not be the best striker, and obviously he's going to be at a disadvantage in that matchup, or in this matchup this weekend, but I think that his pace, constant forward movement, setting a high volume will make up for the technical disadvantages he'll be at, but that will allow him to flow into his grappling game, which should allow him to get fights to the ground, and then from there really start to wear Jack Della Maddalena down. I'm not counting out a finish for Muhammad, but I do think his decision prop at plus 100 makes sense why it's at that line. If he wins, it probably comes on the scorecards. But if he's able to set up a high enough pressure that it causes JDM some issues, we saw JDM have tremendous struggles in the first 10 minutes against Gilbert Burns dealing with that type of style. Maybe Muhammad's able to muster up a late finish. Round 4, Muhammad plus 2,900. Round 5, Muhammad plus 3,200. Definitely worth a little bit of a consideration. On the flip side for Maddalena, I think he needs a finish to win this fight. I think if it hits the scorecards, it probably doesn't look the best for him. Him to win by knockout plus 310, probably the best prop for him, I would say. And then long shot conspiracy theory. We know Maddalena's working a lot with Craig Jones for this matchup. Maybe he's trying to set up some sneaky submissions or trying to catch Belal when he comes in for a desperation takedown, grabs up the ghillie or slaps on a dart stroke or something like that. You can get Maddalena to win by submission at plus 2,200. So something to think about there. I'm not saying it's going to hit, but definitely worth a little bit of a consideration based off what I was just laying out for you guys there. But I'm going to go Muhammad by decision plus 100 as my favorite prop in that matchup. All right, let's quickly talk about the 3 best prop bets from last week. We went 0-3. We had Robertson by submission. She gets a TKO. We had Jones by submission. Doesn't really get to his grappling until the ending of each round, which doesn't give him enough time to work on his submission game. Ponzinibbio by decision. Bad pick overall. I'll wear that one on my sleeve. That was a very, very bad pick. Pretty embarrassed about that one, I'll be honest. And then the long shot, Montel Jackson, round 1 KO plus 850. It didn't seem like Jackson really wanted to let the power go too much. He seemed a little bit more invested in landing some takedowns, and then he seemed a little bit more muzzled than we've seen him in the past. But doesn't come through with our long shot there, and it didn't even seem like he had the mentality of trying to cash that ticket for us. All right, let's get to the top 3 best prop bets that we have and the long shot that we have for this UFC 315 card. The first of which, Brad Katona by decision plus 190. Second one, Jasudavicius by knockout at plus 550. And then Jose Aldo by decision at minus 110. And then the long shot, we're going to go with my girl. We're double dipping here. We're going to go Jasmine Jasudavicius round 2 KO plus 1,700. I think it takes her about a round or so to really establish that dominant position, really get Andrade from getting back up, keeping her down, establishing that crucifix that I think is going to be the key here. And then from there, just raining down elbows until she's able to get the stoppage. And I'm hoping that it comes within that 5-minute to 10-minute mark of this fight. And plus 1,700, sign me up. Round 3, I believe, is plus 2,200. So if you want to take that as a little bit of a spot as well, I wouldn't blame that. But for the sake of this segment and the record keeping, we're going to go round 2 KO plus 1,700. All right. That's a wrap on the UFC content for this week. We'll be back next week for UFC Vegas 106. And I should have that breakdown for you guys on Sunday. I've already started it on the Lock for the Night Patreon page in terms of written form. So if you want to get it nice and early, hop on the Patreon page. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on Sunday. Good luck on all your action this weekend, folks. I'll see you guys then. Peace.